And I'm going to turn my video off because I seem to catch myself talking and it distracts me. So I will turn it back on for questions, whatever you guys have. And I only have 27 slides, including this one. So there will be time for questions. I'm going to just hit the high points. So if you're here for RCR credit, I thank David for letting us tack on RCR as part of this. If you don't know what it is, you're probably not here for it, so you can ignore me. But if you're here for RCR credit, please just send an email to rcr@tamu.edu. Just let us know you were here. That way we can double check your name off the list of attendees and make sure you get credit. If you need more, you can scan the QR code. It gives you right to our website that gives you other RCR sessions that we have. I've also included a few there you can look at. Again, this is just for those that fall under our A&M SAP for RCR. So if you don't know what it is, it probably doesn't apply to you, hopefully. So with that, I will get right into it. And so what I plan on doing today, I know I did this session, a similar one back in 23. So I'm going to do just a quick overview summary and then jump right into some of the new things that have happened. It doesn't seem like it's been a year and a half since I did this one last for you guys, but a lot has changed. So we'll just really focus on the changes. But really what it is research security, foreign influence wasn't really a thing years ago. Wasn't really a term we used. And really it came about because the feds really started growing concern with some of our intellectual property ending up in other countries without the sponsors knowing it. And these are the sponsors that paid for it. So understandably, they were a little bit concerned. And just how we can balance the academic freedom aspects of international collaboration with national security, research security concerns, that kind of thing. So how did we get here? So it started with inappropriate sharing of grant applications, shadow labs, so conducting the same or similar research at two different institutions. I have a good example for this right after this, kind of my poster child example that I like to give. And then incomplete disclosures of relationships. So we had a lot of questions about disclosures, what our researchers were doing, and we really didn't have that. And the feds were really starting to look at, hey, why don't you know about this? Why haven't they disclosed? So my poster child example, and some of you guys have probably seen this, heard this, hopefully you've heard of him, Dr. Charles Lieber. So very, very well-respected researcher at Harvard. He was the chair of that department, had a joint appointment with their engineering department, very well-respected. Had received over the years over 15 million in NIH and DoD research funding. In 2011, he was named the leading scientist in the world for that decade. I mean, he's got 400 papers, so many publications, really too many awards to list. This is such a quick summary of all his accomplishments. You can read pages and pages of just how brilliant he was as a researcher. Well, in 2011, he became a strategic scientist for Wuhan University of Technology in China. And this was through a 1,000 Talents contract. So this was still when the contracts were actually labeled 1,000 Talents contract. And as part of that contract, they paid him $50,000 a month, 150 in living expenses, gave him a pretty good research budget to really kind of set up a shadow lab at Wuhan. And so they would pay him in cash. He had a bank account. And so none of this was ever disclosed to Harvard or to the federal sponsors. And keep in mind, NIH and DoD have always required these things to be disclosed to them, as did Harvard. So the federal investigators started investigating him in 2018, asked him about talent awards, NIH, DoD, Harvard, all asking him these questions. And he just denied. He said, I don't know anything about it. I've never been asked to participate in a 1,000 Talents program. He said, I don't even know what China calls me. And so he denied it. They had emails, though. They had documentation that he did know. He did sign these things. He even denied knowing about these bank accounts in China, and they had his signatures on these bank account documents. So, and then, of course, carrying bags of cash over and not reporting it to the IRS, right? So now the IRS wants their piece of it, too. So it's just he's got a lot of people interested, right, in his activities. So in January 2020, he was arrested and charged with 2 federal counts of making materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statements. In 21, he was convicted of 6 felonies in federal court. There have been appeals. They didn't come through. He was sentenced to house arrest ultimately in 23. And then I always kind of just read up for updates on him just because I'm kind of a nerd and I like to follow these things. But a federal judge actually recently granted him permission to fly over to China to try to seek employment. So I don't know if he's actually gone yet. I don't know if he's actually had employment there. But anyway, this is a very interesting case to read. Wikipedia has a decent summary, but you can just Google his name. You'll find a lot of information on him. And then this is just kind of a fun fact because he's very busy, right? So he's full-time at Harvard, practically full-time at Wuhan. He has time to grow pumpkins as well. So this is just kind of a fun fact because clearly he's good at anything he chooses to do, right? But he's won quite a few awards for having the largest pumpkin. So my first thought, aside from what do you do with that big of a pumpkin, right? How many pies can you make with that? Is how did he have time to do this? He had two full-time jobs, traveling back and forth to China quite often. But anyway, that's just kind of a fun fact. So clearly he's good at anything he does. It's just a shame that he threw it all away for lack of disclosures and that kind of thing. But so now we'll get right into a brief history and timeline. I'm going to cover this pretty quickly because most of you guys have probably heard it, but if there's any new folks on, I just want to make sure that y'all are kind of aware of where it started. So really this started in 2018. Francis Collins was the director of NIH at the time. And he sent a letter out to over 100 research institutions and just said, hey, what are your researchers doing? Did you know they were spending all this time over in this other country? Or did you know they had this other full-time job and doing research for this other entity not in the US? And 9 times out of 10, even the department heads or deans didn't even know about it. So that really shined a light on it. In December 2019, the Jason report came out. If you guys aren't familiar with the Jason group, they're a very elite group of scientists, usually stick to science and technology, but they were asked to just kind of say, hey, is this an issue? Will you guys focus on maybe intellectual property theft, research security? Is this something we need to worry about? Their report said, yes, absolutely. They included conflict of commitment kind of under this research security umbrella. In January 21, at the tail end, very tail end, I think like the last week of the first Trump administration, National Security Presidential Memo 33 came out. It mandated the establishment of research security programs. And a lot of people at the time, I still can't believe it's been this long ago, but at the time, people thought the Biden administration might just put it aside, not really focus on it. But they made it clear this is a very bipartisan issue. They picked it up, ran full steam ahead. In January 22, we get the implementation guidance out. The CHIPS and Science Act followed, and that was pretty heavy on the science, but it did include and kind of solidify the research security requirements that came out of NSPM 33. And I'll go into a little more detail about each of these here in just a minute. The Jason report had another request by NSF that just kind of went into a little more detail. You know, what can they do to help identify areas they need to focus on to address research security? And then the long-awaited Office of Science and Technology guidelines that were supposed to come out at the end of 23, a little bit late, came out in July of 24, but really confirmed for the 4 mandatory program elements that I'll get into here in just a second. So that was just a very brief timeline. So I talked about NSPM 33. Implementation guidance came out in January 22. And really what that did was, as far as research security programs, it directed research institutions receiving more than 50 million. We receive a little bit more than that, right, at the university, so we're covered. I know some of our member schools aren't, but as far as here on main campus, we absolutely fall under that. And we are required to establish a research security program that includes those 4 elements. So cybersecurity, foreign travel security, research security training, which we have a very recent update. That's what David had kind of mentioned earlier, and export control training. So cybersecurity. So I kind of included the previous draft guidance just because I felt like I talked about it so much, and some of you guys may have already seen it. I didn't want you to think, wait, that's not what that lady said last year. So previous draft guidance, I've just included it up above, updated. So, and we'd gone through previous draft, our IT, our system, office, everyone had gone through it. We'd pretty much already met all those requirements, weren't too worried about it. Our IT folks weren't too worried about it. Updated final guidance now refers to National Institute of Standards and Technology cybersecurity resource. So it hadn't been published yet, to my knowledge, unless it snuck through and I haven't seen it yet. But our system is on top of NIST, so I feel like there's not going to be any too big surprises here as well. And so that's the first one. The second one, foreign travel security. So this is one the feds actually backtracked a little bit on, and they weren't quite as stringent. So previously, they wanted all covered all institutions that fell under an SPM 33 to have a record, a system that could track all international travel. We have that. So we had Concur, now it's called Emburse. I think most people have rolled into Emburse now. Some folks hopefully aren't using Concur anymore. I think it's going away next month. But we've had that in place. We've had at the university, you've already had to request approval for all international travel if it was for university business. So we already had all that in place. Some of the smaller schools across the US didn't, and it would have been very cost prohibitive for him to do that. So the updated final guidance doesn't change anything from our perspective, but really helped out some of those smaller schools and just said, all right, you just need an organizational record of travel, similar to how we use Emburse now, just if an agency determines that it warrants the reporting. So no changes on our side for the most part. That just if you go to a smaller school and notice a change, that would be why. Research security training. So I'll get into more of the changes later, but previous draft guidance, and I'll say took up a whole slide, so I really condensed it up there. But previously said we had to have a research security program. That included disclosures, proper use of funds, international collaborations, all these kind of things, international travel, updated final guidance. So we came out with the modules. So I don't know if you guys have taken those 4 NSF modules. If you have, kudos. They were pretty long. I've taken them just because I like to see what it is before I recommend someone take it. I like to know what it is. But we have our system office did a combined version that's about an hour. And that's what's highlighted in yellow below. That's research security training combined. So either or will meet the new research security training requirements that are coming out. We only have one hard one coming out right now. Now you may have already taken it. We have some that have taken it if they have research collaborations or that kind of thing, and that might have been a mitigating factor for them to take. So if you've already taken it, but a lot of people haven't yet because the requirements are just now rolling out. Want you to be aware, if you do need to take it, I'll talk about that here in just a little bit, so you're not surprised. But I just wanted you guys to know that there is a new train track course now that will meet that requirement. Export control training. So previous draft guidance just said, here you need an export control training program that covers these things. Updated final guidance, no real big changes there. You can meet the export control training requirement by taking a relevant training. We don't know yet what those are, administered by the Bureau of Industry and Security or the Department of Commerce. But we've had a research security training or an export control training for many years. The system has it, university uses it, and Train Track. Really, last time I ran a report, about 70% of our university employees have already taken it. So if you're already in the rotation, you've already taken it. That's not a new requirement. It may be a new requirement for the other 30% of you. But just know if you've taken it, that training meets this requirement. Our system office will update that existing training, I believe, if there's anything they do need to update to meet any of these requirements. The CHIPS and Science Act. So I mentioned that briefly in my history and timeline. And really this just solidified an SPM 33. It outlined the prohibition on malign foreign government talent recruitment programs. And what those are is similar to what Dr. Charles Lieber had. They require you to work in that country. They require you to give them the intellectual property. They require you maybe not to tell your institution about it and keep it secret. So there are requirements in there that as an employee of the state, you couldn't agree to anyway. So that's really what that is. And throwing malign in front of it just means it's with the country of concern, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Mandates the research security training requirements that we're seeing the federal agencies start to roll out now. Reporting of foreign financial transactions, and prohibition on Confucius Institutes. If you saw me give this presentation probably in the last couple of years, you may wonder why I took out the waiver. So initially there was going to be a waiver process where if maybe you wanted to collaborate with someone at a smaller institution or another institution in the US that had a Confucius Institute, you could request a waiver of that prohibition, but they've completely taken that out. So this is just an outright prohibition now. Last time I checked, not many universities in the US had Confucius Institutes anymore. I don't know. I feel like with this prohibition, that'll probably get rid of the last few. But just keep in mind, if you want to collaborate with another entity, that's something to keep in mind. So here is what David had mentioned with some of the new things rolling out. So Department of Energy, now they're the first federal agency to implement this. I expect NSF, the other agencies will start rolling out their deadlines soon. But what this means is that within 12 months prior to submitting your proposal, that's due on or after May 1, so that's coming up here in a couple weeks, you have to first take research security training. So this applies to covered individuals, your PI, your project director, co-PI, co-project director, project manager, and to make it more fun, because right, the feds can't make anything easy for us, anyone else that they deem as a covered individual. So we're watching that. We're kind of watching for proposals maybe that come out after May 1st, so we can give you a heads up. I tried to give a heads up to the university faculty who had TAMU or HSC or Galveston awards. If you have a current DOE, I emailed you out just a heads up, because I assume you guys may apply for more DOE funding. So we've tried to kind of notify relevant people if we think this might apply to you. But just know, all these requirements I'm talking about are for the members who fall under NSPM 33. So just in case we have any non-College Station folks online. But that does apply to TAMU, TEAS, AG, our bigger agencies here. So how do you meet this, right? So how do we meet this requirement? So if you've already completed all 4 of the modules within the last year, Maestro they're checking for you all 4, and that will also check for the new research security training that's combined, the 1-hour course. We will only assign that number 2 complete train track course 2114875. I won't go in and assign all 4 of those other ones because I value my life. I know some of you guys probably that might set you over the edge. But if you've already taken the 4, don't worry. Those count. Frequency. So we don't know yet. I anticipate that it will be annual, just simply because the CHIPS and Science Act requirement language does include language that says within 12 months of submitting a research and development application to a federal agency. But we'll let you guys know. I mean, as soon as we get confirmation, of course, you guys will know. I anticipate NSF coming out next, only because they stated that they're not sure if they're going to wait till the PAPG guide comes out in the fall, or if they're going to issue a separate notice this summer, making it effective then. So just be aware that as we receive the notifications from NSF, DOD, NIH, other federal sponsors, we'll let you guys know. Also wanted to point out that I do know of at least one other university in the US that's requiring this on current awards as well for DOE. So if that changes, of course, we'll let you guys know. This seems like this is changing every day. As of now, we're doing it at proposal submission for DOE, but I just want you guys to be aware that if the feds, or maybe if the system decides, yes, let's do this for current awards as well, we'll reach out and let you guys know. Just didn't want you to be surprised. So what does that lead us to? So a lot of this is just reminders on existing requirements. So if you're current on a lot of these existing requirements, you're good. If you haven't heard from us and you've disclosed things, that's a good thing. That means everything's good. We're not worried about you and the feds coming and asking about you, right? So System Regulation 150103, financial conflicts of interest, that really has been unchanged since 2012. So the feds really did a big revamp of this and start about 2011, solidified it in 2012, and really it's remained relatively unchanged since. And so the only thing we changed on our side was previously we asked just generally, do you have any significant financial interest, yes or no? What we did with, for those of you members that are using Huron, and I understand not everyone on the call may use Huron, but if you're using Huron, all we did was take the A, B, C, D, E, F there and basically just turn those into yes, no questions. So you didn't have to try to remember, gosh, I can't remember what an SFI is. It's been a year since I've even thought about it or looked at it. So now it's just a yes, no question. So nothing new, nothing changed, same things that's been required since 2012. All we did was change the format of how we ask. Additionally, System Regulation 310501, the faculty consulting and or external professional employment, virtually identical to 310502. 310501 is for specifically faculty and for their work in their field of discipline. 310502 covers the rest of us, staff members who aren't faculty, but also includes faculty where outside activities that are unrelated to their field of discipline. So both virtually identical. We're not over those regulations, but we do try to get it out when we can, because they outside foreign activities do require export control review, which does fall to us. So in April 2020, they added the bold underline text that required prior approval for outside activities with foreign entities, even if they were unfunded. So that's been a requirement since 2020. They made very minor tweaks in 23 to really just acknowledge the export control policy and the high-risk global engagement, high-risk international collaboration policy, which I will talk about next. So that's been in place since 2020, so that's nothing new. For those of you that use Huron, we capture that in Huron now, all those approvals, just to get it off of the paper form that had been used previously. But no big change there. System Regulation 150504, high-risk global engagements and high-risk international collaborations. So this went in effect with System in August 22. And this is in response to the NSPM 33 guidelines, the research security concerns, that kind of thing. And so what is a high-risk global engagement? That one's pretty easy because it's an actual contract. But it does include contracts that require participation with foreign persons based in a country of concern. What is the high-risk international collaboration? This one's a little more vague. It includes pretty much anything you do as part of your university responsibilities with a foreign person in a country of concern. The new definition that was updated very recently by System just includes, you can see it there, a section with the National Defense Authorization Act. It really doesn't take anything out that was up in the old definition. If you have a question on what you're doing, please ask. If we don't know, we will escalate the System and ask. And generally, they're pretty quick about getting back to us and letting us know yes or no that does or doesn't require. Very little doesn't require approval, but we're always happy to ask if you don't know and we don't know. What are the countries of concern? So who does this apply to? So China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, they've been longstanding countries of concern. China does include Hong Kong. Previously Macau was in there, so Macau's been removed. And recently we've added Cuba and the Maduro regime of Venezuela. So this doesn't mean Venezuela. It's the Maduro regime there in Venezuela. And so really, what does all of this mean? If you have a high-risk global engagement or high-risk international collaboration, just please remember it requires prior approval. So what we don't like is have someone reach out to us and say, hey, guess what? Has this person been collaborating with someone in a country of concern for 2 years? Where's the approval? And if we don't know about it, we don't have the approval, that's always a problem. And so please note, and I bring that up because now for updates to System Regulation 150504, we have to include disciplinary actions in that. So we're seeing things denied now because they've been out of compliance now since maybe 2022 or before. So just keep that in mind. The System regulation has been updated to include this requirement for disciplinary actions. There's a time deadline now, and so we have to submit to System at least 10 business days in advance. We're asking for another 10 days. Our corresponding rule is currently routing. We've recommended 20, that may change for total, but keep in mind, if you're traveling or if you need more than that, this is just a minimal requirement to get approval before the actual activity. If you need to, keep in mind, you may need to also book travel, or you may need to confirm with the conference whether you can speak or not before that. So the quicker you get it in, the better. Also, System Regulation 150504 includes now Governor's Abbott's Executive Order 48, which I'll go into detail if you haven't heard of that. I've got a slide for that too. But the last two bullets here are from that. So system employees are prohibited from accepting gifts or traveling to a country of concern for professional purposes. So those countries I had listed, we are prohibited from traveling to now. System employees are prohibited from entering into a high-risk global engagement or participating in a high-risk international collaboration with entities on a most recent list developed by Section 1286. And so we keep on top of that list. If you can't remember, don't worry about it. It's just as long as you're requesting prior approval before you start, we'll let you know. We'll let you know if that entity is on the list, if they're not. And so we will take care of that for you. Here's just a bigger slide. I know this was covered on the previous 2 slides ago, but I'm a visual person. I like it bigger. And so I just hope this might help you guys remember. So these are our current countries of concern. Our system office updates us quarterly. And so we'll update you guys as they're updated, but this is the current list right now. So y'all heard me mention the executive order. So what is that? So when it came out, it was issued in November of 2024. A lot of people still reference it, call it the hardening of state government. We kind of call it just GA 48. Just some key elements. So there were 7 key elements of that executive order. And I've just kind of gone through these are very brief bullet points. I'll focus on the ones that you guys are probably interested in. But the first one, certification that vendors are not listed on various prohibited vendor lists. So our purchasing office, they're aware of that. They're aware of any language they need to include. Number 2 is where it really kind of is a focus area because of the travel. So no personnel can travel for professional purposes a country of concern. And so we get that conferences rotate, and I know they're very big, prestigious conferences that maybe are in China, for example, or Hong Kong this year, that maybe were in the US and Oregon maybe last year. And so I know it's frustrating that we can't travel there, but just know that you can't travel to those countries currently. Applicants, this one doesn't really affect us. So this is job applicants must attest that they're not connected to a country on the foreign adversaries list. So that's with our HR. I think that focused on the Texas Workforce Commission. So really doesn't focus on, I don't think our HR folks use that. I don't want to talk too much. I don't want to misstate anything, but they're on top of that. Employees, number 4, employees must provide notification of personal travel to a country of concern. So how this is set up now is if you're going back home over the summer, you're traveling just vacation, and it happens to include one of those countries of concern, you have to put a notice into Workday just so your supervisor knows. And then once you return, you've got to just submit a post-travel brief. Just what did you do? Did you visit family? Did you go on a sightseeing trip? Just what did you do? And that's just the responsibility of your supervisor just to make sure you submitted that report. Number 5, ensuring personnel have access to critical infrastructure, can maintain security, do not have criminal history or connections to foreign adversaries. Our HR is on top of this as well. I believe they're trying to identify employees that this falls under that have access to critical infrastructure, that will have to be monitored, screened periodically, that kind of thing. Number 6, the reporting of foreign gifts and contract disclosures, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. I think that's just a report that they already do for other agencies. They just now have to send it to THECB. And number 7, so prohibition of faculty employees taking part in recruitment programs from foreign adversary nations. So this is the malign foreign government talent programs, which is prohibited. So it's been prohibited. Our system regulation 150504 that I talked about will be prohibited by our rule that's routing now. So implementation teams working through all this. System is giving us guidance. We're working through at A&M on how to implement all of these. Hope to have it out sometime the end of May. And working on a website. I want to give props to Tarleton. They've got a really good FAQ website on GA48. If you Google that, they've got really good answers already. So I have to give them credit for getting that out so quick. It looks really good. So if you have any questions, don't be afraid to go to Tarleton's site. I hope they don't mind me giving them credit. So what does all this mean? Y'all have heard me talk about all these requirements, right? So really, what does it mean? Any global engagement or international collaboration with the country of concern requires approval. We have to submit that up to the System Vice Chancellor for Research for approval. Travel, now remember with travel, GA48 currently prohibits travel to a country of concern, but all foreign travel requires prior approval anyway. So if you forget, we're not going to come after you. We're just going to remind you that it's denied if you submit that into embers. Sponsored projects, we annually review those international collaborators that are on your projects. If we see an issue, we'll reach out to you, ask a question. If there's an issue within a collaborator that's been on your project. Outside activities, those route to us through Huron. If you're a Huron member, we're reviewing for export control review. We're reviewing. If we see anything, we're going to let you know. We'll ask you questions. Your foreign appointments, the unfunded and funded collaborations agreements, just anything you're doing with the country of concern, please know it requires prior approval. Risk matrices. So I just wanted to bring this up because this is kind of what the feds are looking at. So for those of you researchers with these federal projects, it wasn't just us sitting around thinking, we're bored. What can we do to make your lives miserable, right? Because I can assure you we're not. We're like other universities really struggling with how to meet all these new requirements as well. And so the risk matrices, so DoD, they were the first ones that came out with one. And I'll show you, I actually have a screenshot of it on my next slide, but just kind of shows you what they're looking at as far as how they're making decisions on what to fund. And I wanted to point out, so DoD fundamental research, the high risk global engagement is completely separate from the fundamental research exclusion we have with export controls. So just because there are no export control concerns doesn't mean it doesn't fall under the research security umbrella. So I know we get schooled sometimes in our office about, have we ever heard of the fundamental research exclusion? Why are we bothering them, right? Probably 90% of the things we send up to system for approval as far as research security doesn't have export control concerns. So I wanted to point that out just as in case that's in the back of anyone's mind, that research security doesn't necessarily equal export controls. DOE, NIH, NSF, a lot of them haven't published their risk matrices yet. They've just kind of talked about what they look at. But here's what the DoD research matrix looks like. So you can kind of see, I know that's kind of hard to see, but you can see what they're looking at. So they're looking at the Foreign Talent Recruitment Program. They're looking at funding sources. Have you been funded by another country and have you disclosed it? Some are looking at patents. So maybe NIH paid for all this research, and now they want to know why that patent was filed in another country instead of the US first. So they're looking at that. They're looking at entity lists. So a lot of these entity lists are export control lists, but there are other lists as well. And so is this entity you want to collaborate with or you want to travel to, are they on any of these naughty lists? Because that's a factor in determining whether they award the proposal or maybe award it with some mitigation measures and that kind of thing. And so this is just kind of a summary comparison chart of what they're looking at, because they can't all be the same, right? Everyone has to look at things differently, but they have different missions and different research projects. So it's understandable they're a little different. It would just be easier on us, right? If they could all be the same. Questions we get a lot are they looking at co-authors? And how far back are they looking? So you can see here, they're all different. DoD, yes, we're looking at co-authors, whether DoD funded it or not. They don't know how far back yet they're going. It probably depends on the proposal. They may go back to 2019, or they may go back to the CHIPS Act date of 2022. DOE is one that they've been a little bit more vague as far as what they put in. They haven't put much in writing, but they've attended and spoken at a lot of our conferences. And verbally, they have stated they may look at co-authors, They don't know how far they'll go back, but they've said on more than one occasion they could go back 10 years. So keep that in mind. NIH, they don't care about co-authors unless NIH was funded part of it. And they're only going to look back 5 years. So far they've been pretty clear on that. NSF. Now for NSF, it's just for our quantum proposals only. So they are applying a risk matrix for that. Now, all of this I'm saying could change tomorrow, right? So this is just as of the most recent information I have. They are not looking at co-authorship, and they are only going back to January 22 when NSPM 33 guidance came out. So all a little bit different, some looking at co-authors, some not. And so just kind of keep that in mind as you're applying for these proposals, and the questions we're asking is because the feds are asking that as well. So I'm almost done, I promise, this is my last slide. So what can you do? I've thrown a lot of requirements at you guys, and I'll say most all of the requirements except for the FCOI and probably outside activities weren't here for years when I first started. So a lot of this is pretty new for you guys to have. So, watch for updates. So we have lots of work groups. I try to put relevant updates out in the CPI newsletter. Try to send out emails like we did, targeting just our DOE researchers, just so they would know about the DOE requirement. Targeting probably wasn't the right word. It was a helpful email, just, hey, heads up, just in case. And disclose. So really just disclose everything. We would rather you, if you don't know if you have to disclose something or not, or if something needs approvals, just ask. I mean, we're happy to help. We would rather you ask, rather you disclose than the feds come after us later and say, hey, did you know about this? Why didn't you approve it? Or why did we allow this, right? If you're traveling or collaborating internationally, just please make sure you have the right approvals. Make sure you've worked with IT, export controls. If you get with us, export controls, we'll remind you all of these things. Financial conflicts of interest, just make sure you answer those questions in Huron. If you're a Huron participating member. Conflict of commitment, faculty consulting, outside activities, just please make sure you get prior approval for that. Those are all existing regulations and rules, so those aren't new. The global engagement, I need to quit saying that's new. It feels new to me still, but it's been 3 years. And so hopefully you have heard of it and you're on top of it, but just ensure you have the right approvals. We do still get things. We don't go troll the internet and just look for people who mess up. We don't have time for that. But we do get people that send us things and say, hey, can you just make sure this was approved? And we look at it and we don't have approvals for it. So we may reach out to you, is this still ongoing? And why didn't it have approval first? So if you have anything, just please let us know. With that, thank you. Y'all have had to hear me talk quite a bit. Are there any questions?